I have the great pleasure of having Dave Nessling here, who has not only been a player, he's been vice chairman, treasurer, long-term chairman, and life member of this great club. I'm speaking to him in tragic circumstances because PETE Eastman has passed away, and I wanted to get Dave on to kind of talk about PETE, as I've had quite a number of fans get in contact and want to find out more about him. He's got a massive thumbprint in East Sussex football. I mean, I'm only scratching the surface here, really, Dave.
I suppose the first thing to say is that he was my brother-in-law. I'm married to Peter's sister, but I classed him as a close friend over many years, going way back, probably 40 or 50 years. I mean, Peter first came into prominence with football, cricket, and a load of other sports. He worked at Chandler's Printers in Bexhill, and from there he went to the Hastings Observer, again as a printer, so printing was his trade. He ended up really with his commencement of football playing for Observer Athletic. Now, Observer Athletic used to play in the Hastings League, and they played on the Observer football field, which was the one behind the Boss and is now covered by the Abbotsfield Close housing development. And the Observer Athletic had their tennis courts, bowling green, cricket in the summer, and a football pitch in the winter. And Peter played there with his brothers Bob and John, certainly on the cricket side, but Peter played particularly in the football team, which was a strong football team in those days. He also was a lifelong fan for his sins of Wolverhampton Wanderers, and always followed them from a young age, despite their ups and downs. So he came through in local sport, and he went from there to Hastings United. He was spotted by Hastings United playing for Observer Athletic, and he went to Hastings United and he got into their Metropolitan League side, which were playing teams like Arsenal reserves, Spurs reserves, West Ham reserves, etc. And he could be seen flying down the wing at the Pilot Field. In those days, I was in the under-18 side at the Pilot Field that played in the Kent Youth League. So that's really where my first relationship with Peter came from. He was affectionately nicknamed by his colleagues, and I think this actually came from the late Joe White, as Whippet. And that name seemed to follow him through his football career, and he was called Whippet simply because he used to go down the wing at a great pace of knots. When he eventually left Hastings United, and he played some Southern League games as well, I believe, but mostly he was in the Metropolitan League side. He had spells at Rye United, Sidley United and Bexhill Town in the Football League. And then when he retired, he took over his first job in management on a local league side called PAC. Now, PAC were a side that sort of had started to develop young players, and players such as the late Chrissy Tutton, Mark Baldwin, Martin Cousins, and others such as Tommy Boyle, Gary Wilkins, all came through that PAC side. And because he was doing well with PAC, that attracted back the attention of Hastings United to him. Of course, this is the old Hastings United that eventually went to the wall in July 1985. And they asked him if he would go and run the reserve side at Hastings and take all his PAC players with him. This he did, and he had a successful few years running the reserve side at Hastings United. It would probably have been in something like the Sea Anglian League, which was known in those days. But because he was doing so well there, Hastings Town, or Hastings and St Leonard's, which the original club was, that played at the top pitch of the Pilot Field and then went to Bulverhythe after that, we're looking for a new manager to replace Mick Piper. And they'd seen that Hastings was doing well with the with the reserve side managed by Peter, and they also saw that there were a lot of young players coming through that group. So they made an approach to Peter, unbeknown to them. At the same time, Bexhill Town were approaching Peter to be their reserve team manager. To be their assistant manager of their first team. Well, Peter was particularly attracted by the fact that he wanted to get into first team management in his own right. So he took the job with Hastings and St Leonard's, who were languishing, with me in goal, incidentally, in the lower reaches of the Sussex County League Division 2, playing at Bulverhythe. He took over from myself and Mick Creed, who were managing the club on a sort of temporary basis as joint managers. Mick Creed was a centre half and was very, very well known in local football, both Saturdays and Sundays. So Peter took over, and he took us from the lower echelons to the high up echelons of the league in the first season, and that was in about 1977. He was attracted particularly by the plans the club had to return to new facilities at the top pitch of the Pilot Field, with a view to getting into County League Division 1. In his second season, whilst still developing the top pitch of the Pilot Field, he took the club to almost promotion, just missed out in the last few games of the season. But all that time, he and the fellow committee members, including myself and Ronnie Moth, at the top pitch of the Pilot Field, were instrumental in developing the facilities there. And in the following season, we returned to the top pitch of the Pilot Field. During the summer, Peter went right all out to strengthen the squad of players further. And that season, we won County League Division 2, plus other silverware, and we were promoted to County League Division 1. At the end of the season, the club arranged a trip to Florida for the squad, the families, the committee, and we went to Florida. And an amusing story in connection with that is Peter and his wife, Jill, who passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, didn't like the idea of flying. And he never flew again after that. We had a wonderful time in Florida, led by him, had a couple of games of football with him managing. I think we were away for 3 weeks, and, you know, a wonderful time was had by all.
Yeah.
When we returned to the UK, we were obviously going to commence our season in Sussex County League Division 1 at the top pitch of the Pilot Field, by that top, which been renamed by the club as the Firs. I think we had 2 or 3 seasons in County League Division 1. And then probably at the end of the first quarter in 1985, there were all these announcements that Hastings United was in financial difficulty, and that this was being caused by the social club that had been built, the squash club that had been built, and they couldn't meet their liabilities. They decided to liquidate, and we then negotiated with Hastings Borough Council to go back to the Pilot Field, which Hastings and St Leonard's incidentally had played on before Hastings United came into being as a professional club in about 1948, something like that, after the war. So we returned to the Pilot Field, and obviously the story has gone on from there. Peter was by that time chairman of the club, and we appointed Joe White and Jack Dalton as his assistant as the first managers, and we were accepted to replace Hastings United in the Southern League. We had a number of good seasons with Peter as chairman, and we did quite well in the Southern League, getting promoted in the end in about 91, something like that. Peter was a life member of Hastings United, and he cherished that position. Hastings United really is the former Hastings and St Leonard's and then Hastings Town, but it's now renamed Hastings United. He also had a very, very successful spell in the Sunday Football League. First as a player with London Trader way back.
That must have been lively.
Yeah,
Dave,
it was.
the London Trader.
I played with him at London Trader, where people like Joe White were playing. He then, after that, became manager of Westfield Plough. And again, I played for him there, as did Peter Petkovic, Chrissy Tutt, Mark Baldwin, and a number of the former PAC and Hastings players, including such as Malcolm Streeter. And we won the local Sunday League, and we won a number of cup competitions, including the Sussex Club. He also, in his 50s, when he was in his 50s, played with his son-in-law for the Hastings Town Sunday League side. And that team was managed by Conky White, who died a short time ago himself. I mean, Peter was very well known and respected in Sussex football support circles. He gave great committed service to the football fraternity of Hastings over many years. He loved talking football, with his happiest hours on the football front probably being football chat that took place in the clubhouse over a beer after a match.
Excellent stuff.
I mean, I can tell you another funny story about him. He was always one for Peter to be, because he ended up running his own Eastman dry lining business, which his son Michael now continues to run. And I can remember it very well back in November, the 15th of November, 1969.
Yeah.
Now, people are saying, what date is that? Well, Peter was always one to get the best he could. And he had a house in Mount Pleasant Road, and I remember it as if it was yesterday. He bought colour television. And the reason he bought colour television is because Match of the Day went colour on the 15th of November, 1969. And we all gathered at his house to watch it, family and friends. That was the type of bloke he was.
Yeah. Dave, I mean, in terms of the service, I mean, is there any way any of the Hastings fans can give their respects to Pete and his family, or any way they can leave messages of condolence?
Well, I think one of the issues at the moment is because he died so suddenly, they're waiting for a post-mortem.
Okay.
So we don't as yet even have a date for the funeral.
Okay.
Obviously, that will be announced in due course, but I would think some form of book of condolence or remembrance that they could sign, maybe at the club or online, might be something that you could think about.
Well, I'm on the supporters club, so I can definitely I'll get on that. I
expect the club will no doubt have a minute's silence or a minute's applause at one of the forthcoming games.
Yeah, they've got for this Saturday. Yeah, minutes applause. Well, listen, Dave, thank you very much for those kind words. Take care, and have a good afternoon. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Cheers, chap.